What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the economic data coming out for tomorrow, as we have big data coming out, not to mention some very important earnings for tomorrow, which leads me to giving you guys a very important warning about the market right now. I'm also going to talk about some other very important news involving Tesla, which is going to be very important for the stock. But before I break down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. This offer ends very soon. Anyways, looking at Tesla, we're seeing some very interesting price action. I warned everyone that Tesla was looking very bearish in the pre-market. I told you if we lost this 230 support, expect us to come down to 228. And if that failed us, we could get very close to 225. And that's almost the exact level that Tesla ended up going and trying to bounce off of. Now, as Tesla's trying to rebound, we're testing our resistance, which is we have some resistance at 227.5 to 228, this entire zone. If we break above 228, then we have this new green trend line right here, which is going to be our next resistance zone, depending on the timing at which we test this. And then above that, we have 230. So we have some tight resistance coming up on Tesla. We'll be watching these levels very closely. But I just wanted to note something very important. When it comes to my trades, I actually closed the majority of my day trades. I'm not referring to my long-term, portfolio, my long-term shares or anything like that. I'm just talking about my very, very short-term scalps and some of my swing trades. I closed the majority of them because from this point on, I'm just going to be very patient. I'm going to be waiting for what happens with the big data coming out for tomorrow morning before I enter anything else. And that's just my game plan for now. You don't have to copy me, you don't have to follow me. I'm going to break down why I think I made a very good move in doing so and why you need to be very careful going into tomorrow. So, just as a reminder, we have some big data coming out. Tomorrow, we have the PPI report coming out. This is just like CPI, and it's coming out 1 hour before the market ends up opening. This may cause a very, very big move to the upside or the downside, depending on what the numbers look like. PPI is a leading indicator for CPI as well, so you want to be very careful with this coming out. And we'll be watching to see what this causes. Once again, 1 hour before the market ends up opening. You also have Kashkari from the Fed giving a speech, and he might be discussing some important factors about monetary policy. That's going to be very important right here. We'll watch and see what he says about any potential cuts by the Fed. Right now, I think it's very, very unwise for the Fed to announce cuts now because we just have to wait and see what more data suggests. So the data may have to force the Fed to be more ambiguous, and that's been a little negative for the markets to some extent. That's why the market's sold off. On top of that, so first we have PPI coming out an hour before the market opens, which is going to cause some high volatility. Don't forget that if you look at SPY, for instance, let me just pull up SPY for a second. SPY went from 478 all the way down to about 472, and now it's trying to come back to 476. So crazy volatility. So we have lots and lots of data coming out, and CPI could cause a big move. PPI could cause a big move for tomorrow, so make sure you're prepared for that just to be safe. And then on top of that, we also have massive earnings coming out. Before the market ends up opening tomorrow, we have JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, and Citi all announcing their earnings. So we have big earnings and big data all coming out before market open tomorrow. I find it best, in my personal opinion, to just stay on the sidelines and wait and see how things go. It's very, very crazy how the market ends up moving sometimes. So you just want to be prepared just to be safe. Now, when it comes to Tesla, we also have other pieces of news affecting it. There's some news that came out that Hertz says it's going to invest some of its proceeds from selling Tesla cars back into gas-powered cars, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is the truth right now. They were known back in 2021 for purchasing over 100,000 Tesla Model 3 vehicles, and now they basically have added some Tesla Model Ys. But as of recent, they've come out and said, according to an SEC filing, that they're selling about 20,000 of their EVs. They also are going to sell them for very affordable prices, but with some of the proceeds, they're going to be buying some more gas-powered cars because they quote-unquote need to help meet their consumer demands. So that's some very, very big news that came out. That's about 1/3 of their global EV fleet they want to be selling. So 20,000 Teslas about, that's how many they're going to be selling. And they're going to be once again buying some internal combustion engine cars, also known as gas-powered cars, to meet demand. So that's what the big headlines are saying. Somewhat negative news, technically. There's also this news right here that Tesla is going to be raising the pay for U.S. factory workers. They've told production workers in the U.S. that they're going to get a pay hike, which is good for them. I mean, you could argue they deserve it and this and that. But as investors, some people could be a little concerned about how this will affect Tesla's balance sheets. That is worth noting because once again, Tesla's margins are not the best. So technically, some people could interpret this as something that is, from a moral standpoint, it's good if you want to go that route. But at the same time, it could be a little bit, it could add a bit of a strain, at least for Tesla as a company. So that's just something worth noting. I just wanted to call that out, at least from a financial standpoint, looking at Tesla's margins. But if anything, I always wish for the best of all the production workers. They're all appreciated, and I will say they all deserve, good pay, if anything. But with that being said, other companies like VW and Toyota have also done something very similar. So we're seeing a trend that's still developing. Now let's break down the charts. So as a reminder, guys, if you want to hold overnight through the PPI report and then through all these big earnings, it's your choice. But the market closes in about 2 hours from the time I'm recording this. If you want to hold overnight and risk it, it's your choice. If you're kind of like apprehensive, you don't know what's going to happen, you want to just close your like options, your trades, and just wait until tomorrow until you make another move, then the choice is yours as well. By the time the market closes, that's the last chance, because by the time the market opens tomorrow, all the data is going to be out, the PPI reports, and then all the big earnings from the big banks. Before the market ends up opening, there's going to be a lot of manipulation. I want to warn you about that, so you want to be very careful. Anyways, that's it when it comes to my data analysis. Now let's just talk about the charts. So Tesla approached this resistance very close to 228. It's 227.5 to 228. We're starting to reject right over here where I had this resistance zone, and now we're kind of coming back down towards 226 down here. If we lose this, we have some support where this bottom happens to be at 226, followed by 225.5, and then we also have some support right about there. So looking at Tesla, we're kind of trading sideways right now. Very boring. I'm not really expecting anything else too crazy, but here are some supply and demand zones to be watching for. We have resistance close to 227.5 and 228. Then our next zone of resistance is going to be around this green trend line at 229. And above that, we have 230, followed by 232 and 234. For support, we have 226. And then if we lose that, our next level is going to be around, we have this like wick that's just above this 226 area, followed by 220, 225 below that. So that's it for Tesla for now. It's kind of just trading sideways. We'll be watching to see what happens as time goes on. I don't expect anything too crazy until we start to see these like big earnings coming out. So the market might be not that fun. But I think that the big earnings and the PPI report coming up before the market opens is going to cause a much bigger move. We're going to gap up or gap down most likely. So be prepared for that just to be safe. As far as SPY goes, I just want to mention that SPY was very interesting. We actually made a crazy, crazy move today. This thing was at 478, came all the way down to the 472s. So it broke below our support at 474, and then we ended up bouncing right here, very close to our 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. Now we're trying to rebound, and you can see it got to this resistance at 476, starting to reject right here. So it's fighting right here. So at 476, we have resistance. If we try to break this, we could get very close to this yellow trend line right here. That's going to be our resistance above that. And the 477s, 477.5, we're still like around there. And then for support, make sure you watch this 475.5 area. If that fails us, there's 475 to 474.8, 474 flats, and then below that we have 472.9, the low we made in these lower levels. If we lose all these supports, expect a bigger drop. To turn bearish, you want to see this thing basically lose 474. If you want to be bullish, we want to see this thing try to get above 476 again. But for now, we're kind of stuck. But honestly, guys, technicals are just one factor. Remember how I told you guys that the charts from a technical standpoint were kind of bullish on SPY, but the sell-off we got was still expected because of some bad data. I said that yesterday, but now I just want to note that for today, it doesn't matter what the charts do. The charts don't matter as much where we close. What matters more, it will be what the data looks like, what the bank earnings look like, and what the PPI report looks like. So with that being said, it's impossible for me to give you guys a very accurate prediction of what will happen for sure tomorrow. So the best thing to do is just be patient and be prepared, and you could just trade based off what you know and what you perceive. But because I'm not as certain, because I don't know what the data entails, the best thing for me to do is just to kind of sit on the sidelines and wait for it to come out. That's like my strategy. So I just wanted to warn you about that. It's all your choice if you want to follow what I'm doing or not. But once again, be prepared for that. For the QQQ, we basically came down to the support. The level I called out was 404. That's very close to where it went to. So now we have support at 408 as we try to rebound. 408 is support. If that fails us, we could get very close to the 406s again, then 404s. Resistance, we have 409-ish. Then above that, we have this 410 to 412 area. And then above that, we have 413. We're kind of shopping in the 408s, so it might just remain kind of choppy and maybe slow down over time. I think that it's going to be kind of boring as the day goes on for the next 2 hours. Nothing too insane is going to likely happen, but the much bigger move is going to happen tomorrow. So it's your choice to hold if you want to watch and see what happens. Watch for some high volatility tomorrow and watch these levels just to be safe. As of right now, it's still range bound, not really doing anything too insane. For Nvidia, this was very wild today. We got this little push. I was expecting a little drop on Nvidia. It came before it rebounded. So we did actually come all the way down to about 535 before we saw this attempt to rebound. So the levels I'm going to be watching for are very, very precise. We're going to be watching to see how this thing holds these support zones. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit so it's easier to see. In my opinion, Nvidia is right here at this 550 resistance. It kind of came back down. We have support right now at 546 and then 542. We have resistance at 550 followed by 552. We're kind of stuck right now going back and forth and back and forth. It may continue to do so for the rest of the day, but going into the next day, look for a big gap. It might gap up or gap down depending on the earnings. So we'll see how things go. Be very careful with Nvidia. It might remain stationary for the rest of the day. Last but not least, for Aapl, this was the move we expected. I was talking about this thing coming down and possibly getting close to 183.5 if we lost 185. So watch this 185. So we're kind of shopping around this. We have resistance at 185.5, which is key, 186 and 186.5. For support, you're going to be watching 185 flat. If that fails us, the next major support is 184.25, followed by 183.5 and then 182. As of right now, it's been going back and forth, kind of stuck, not really doing anything too insane. So the best thing I can really tell you is that with this sell-off coming to Aapl, we're still within our range, right? We have this big range from the last couple of days. We're still going back and forth within this range. So it's not officially extremely bearish or extremely bullish till we break out. So going into tomorrow, we will see if Aapl gets a pump or not, or if it ends up dumping. This is going to depend on the big earnings coming out. It's going to depend on PPI. I can't really predict this accurately with 100% certainty. I'm just going to wait and see if I'm going to be honest with you. So we will see how the earnings look. That's the best thing I could tell you. We'll be very patient. We'll be very reactive, and we'll be watching our supply and demand areas very, very closely. Right now for today, for the rest of the day, Aapl might just remain range bound, not really do anything too crazy, just remain going back and forth and back and forth. So there's not really a whole lot for me to say. But with that being said, just wait and see how it goes. And then you guys have an opportunity to either exit or just continue playing. It's up to you. But please have a great day. Get ready for the big data, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day. Make sure you watch your levels on Tesla as well. And peace